How's it going, everybody? This podcast is brought to you by Rise Make Life Workout, a health, self-development, and lifestyle platform building a passionate community of knowledge seekers, creative dreamers, and future leaders.
For details on the latest Rise event that will feature expert speakers in the field of self-development and growth, check out www.rise-workout.com. That's
www.rise-workout.com. Enjoy the show. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the High Frequency Club podcast. My name is Marwan Salario.
And I'm Shenae Behrman. We're here talking all things self-development, growth, and mindset.
In this week's episode, we sit down with Sophie Staniforth. She is the Les Mills Lambton Key Group Fitness Manager.
Sophie and I met back in Perth before relocating here to New Zealand. So we touched on that move for Sophie, how that transition was back home to New Zealand, and especially with her new role as manager and how that was, especially going into COVID.
Yeah, she really touches on having to pull back on the things that she loves, so the process of letting go in order for her to become better at the things that she loves, you know. And an example of that was pulling back on her classes, and so she could go strength train and show up as a better instructor than what she was previously.
And we also touched on understanding the different stresses that our body can be under, that it's not just physical stress, but it can be mental and emotional as well, and factoring all of that in when we do decide what we do each day.
Yeah, she's actually in the process of doing a nutrition course, so she shares some valuable insights to help us also change the way that we eat and approach nutrition.
Yeah, really great listen. So tune in, let us know what you think, and make sure you're following along at the High Frequency Club.
Enjoy the show. All right, let's get the show on the road.
Let's get it on the road.
Thanks for having us here today, Sophie.
You're welcome. Welcome to Wellington.
Thank you. This is actually our first time here in Lambton Key, so it's good to do a little bit of gym hopping and see what you guys are all about down here.
Yeah.
For people who don't know who you are, how would you introduce Sophie Staniforth? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I am very energetic, very open. I love to have a laugh. And I can be serious sometimes too when I need to be, but mainly, open, energetic, and just really inviting. I can be shy sometimes as well, around people that I just like to observe. But yeah, that's me.
What do you do?
What do I do? I am a GFM here at Les Mills in Lambton Key, and I teach classes. So I teach pump, attack, core, RPM, and I'm doing balance module in a couple of weekends.
Ooh.
So yeah, it'd be really cool to add to my repertoire.
I was going to say, that leads into thanks to Les Mills that brought us together back in Perth though. And it wasn't, I guess, long after I moved to Auckland from Perth that then I got a message from you saying, hey, I'm moving back to New Zealand. And so I was intrigued, like what was sort of, I guess, the trigger for you to want to relocate after being in Perth for quite a while and coming back home to New Zealand and finding your feet again here.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of things. I had spent 5 years in Perth, and I think the last year I was just like, I absolutely love Perth. I love the lifestyle, I love the weather, and it was really, really hard to leave. I'm from New Zealand, which is like a colder climate, but I really, really love the hotter weather and spending time there. My heart was just like, you need to go home. And so I thought 5 years was a really, really good dash. I made such cool friends over there and really progressed in my career. And another big reason for me was that my mum and my sister had moved home 9 months earlier. And I'm very much family orientated. So I was just like, had an awesome job, but I knew that, my time was up there. So I just, moved home. It wasn't easy. But I think the transition to New Zealand was the right decision for me because of the events that kind of like happened afterwards. So I got this job pretty quickly and got a flat really quickly, and it was all within a space of like a month moving down to Wellington. So
all sort of fell into place.
It fell into place, yeah, absolutely. And then everybody here in Wellington was very welcoming, so it was really cool. Yeah. But it was a tough decision, like when you're trying to make big life decisions like that. I can be definitely an overthinker, and I'm like, no, everything's fine. But then there's always something like in your heart or in your head just saying, hang on a second, you need to explore that. And so for me, it helped me to write a pros and cons list and just be absolutely open and honest with myself and be like, right, I don't have to make a decision right now, but I just really need to nut out what's going on in my head, write a pros and cons list for every scenario, and then, I don't know, there's always a feeling in my heart being like, yep, you can't ignore that feeling now, you need to follow that path. And so, yeah, that's the reason why I chose to move back home. And yeah, it's definitely not easy, and there's no right or wrong answer, but you've got to make a life choice and just go with it with your whole heart, basically, yeah.
And I think that would have been validating, like you said, that once you got back, like things sort of fell into place, like relatively quickly. They would have all been little things that were like, yep, okay, I've made that right choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And then COVID happened 2 months later, and I mean, I would have made it work in Perth, but it was a lot more comforting being home just to have my family 2 hours away, which was good. And then the support here from management and staff was really, really good. Being a manager for the first time, trying to navigate my way through that as well. So yeah, it's been a big 2 years.
I bet.
Yeah.
What did you find was the most challenging thing coming from a non-managerial role to a managerial role now? Especially during COVID. I mean, that's the hardest time for a career change, but a lot of people also found value in that time and space where they figured out, like, actually, I don't want to be doing this job that I'm doing now, But anyway, back to the question, what was the hardest thing about coming into a managerial role?
It was my first time being a manager, and it's basically helped me be the person that I want to be and given me the confidence. So it's just like, I feel like...
Because what was your role back home at Coburn?
It was a dual role, so it was a membership consultant position, specialising in retention, and that was really awesome for me because I could specialise in sales but also retention. So I helped start people at the gym and got them to fall in love with fitness, and then I had touch points I taught group fitness, and I was in the gym so I could program them a program if they wanted it, and I got to follow up with them just with 3 monthly phone calls and stuff like that, just to see how they were doing with their fitness journey. So that was really, really awesome. I think I always knew that I wanted to be a manager because I'm so passionate about the health and fitness industry, and I know my stuff, and it was just confirming to me getting the management position where I was just like, no, I know my stuff, and I just want to share my passion and my love for the health and fitness industry, with everybody here. And I know the benefit that exercise and movement and leading a healthy lifestyle does for me, and I want people to fully immerse in that. And it's also a confidence thing as well, standing up on stage and just being okay with being your fully authentic self no matter what you're going through in life. I think that's really empowering to be like, yep, I'm going through this. I might show a little bit of that on stage, but we've still got a job to do, and I know the benefit that movement gives to me when I'm up on stage, basically, coaching people through movement. So, one of the difficult thing about being a new manager navigating through the last 2.5 years was because I was new, but looking back at it, if I was to tell myself or give myself a little piece of advice, was like, your stuff, just be confident with it, and you do have a lot of value to give, as everybody does. So, make sure that you're okay. So even if you do need to separate yourself from work and recharge yourself to make sure that you can show up as your best self as well, just so that you're fully open to everybody that's coming to you and needing advice during that time. I think one of the things that I struggled with, but I understand now, is that people needed reassurance, and of course it was just such a hard time in people's life that they just needed someone to say, no, it's going to be okay, even if we didn't know how it was going to turn out to. And sometimes it was a lot of energy. Definitely, don't get me wrong, but it's the type of energy that I wanted to invest in people. It's just, it's going to be okay. We've just got to break it down day by day.
I love what you said about you just had to look at the facts and the evidence for you to be like, yeah, fuck yeah, I've got this. To build their own self-confidence within yourself. And I think even for myself sometimes, it's a hard thing to do. You know, you've got these self-doubt, that imposter syndrome kicks in, and then you don't even have to look too far at the evidence, your body of work, that like, hey, I can actually do this. Do you find that something that you also teach to, you know, your team members and your instructors? Because instructing is a super vulnerable thing, right?
Yeah, it can be, but I've had some of my best classes up on stage because it's easy to, and it's like the default to get sucked into your own negative thinking about how you feel and everything like that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that because we're humans, we have all spectrum of emotions, and that's totally fine to feel whatever you feel before you stand up on stage, but absolutely come back to your why and your purpose and why you're actually standing up on stage with the role that you have as a group fitness instructor, and that's to you know, help people get moving, and just the benefit of fitness and the benefit of taking your mind off, you know, whatever you're worrying about before you came through those doors, and, you know, just listing a few benefits, just the endorphins that are released with exercise and the way that you feel after a body pump class, you know, you've worked on your muscles and you're standing taller with, you know, posture and confidence. It's just, as long as you keep reaffirming those messages in your own mind before you stand up on stage, you're like, actually, I remember why I'm here now, and that's to, you know, help people fall in love with fitness.
Yeah, you're so right in terms of really clarifying your why. Otherwise, it's so easy to compare yourself to like, oh man, you know, Shenae Behrman's done all this, I can never be her. But if I'm just focusing on my why, then it gives me that motivation rather than comparing myself to someone who I could never be.
Absolutely, and it's normal to compare, but just remember that everybody has value because we've always got, you know, a background and unique, you know, unique ways that we were brought up as well. So as soon as you find yourself comparing to someone else, and I still struggle with this. I had real trouble coming in because you'd be compared with a bunch of people, you know, trialing out for classes and stuff like that, and you'd look at them and be like, oh, they're doing this and this and this better than me, but just go back and just be like, actually, no, this is the journey that I've had in my career as an instructor or whatever industry that you're in, and just be like, no, this is the value that I can bring to my classes because it's unique and I matter, and it's just amazing and powerful when you see someone, no matter what background that they have, that they step into their, you know, into their power basically, and then it'll be like, right, this is who I am, let's go.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, it's sort of like flipping that mindset instead of thinking, oh, you know, maybe I'm out of my depths here, or these people are more experienced or whatever. It's more seeing that as an opportunity to be like, no, I'm going to show people what I've got. Like, especially if you're presenting in front of people that maybe don't know you and don't know your background, it is your chance to be like, oh, I'm going to show these people who Sophie Staniforth is. Like, they've not seen me teach before, or they've not seen me do whatever before. Like, this is my chance to show them who I am and what I've got, versus, like you said, getting sort of locked in that negative mindset of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here, and maybe I'm out of my place. And
What came for you first? The health and fitness. Like, how did you get into health and fitness, or were you a performer beforehand? What came first?
That's an interesting question. I definitely think health and fitness came for me first. My family, my mum and dad, my sister, we all value health and fitness quite highly. My mum and my dad met in the army, so they brought that through, and it was always, mum pushing me harder to get into, a high netball team. And it was always, healthy meals on the table, and every Sunday it would be, family orientated, lamb roast and things like that. So it was definitely that. Performer, I did a bit of drama in school, but I think it's definitely a natural part of my personality. Just to, when I was younger, if I was around people that I knew, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. But if I was around people that I didn't know, I'd just stand back and be like, I'm just going to observe to see, what the behaviour of these people are first, to see if I'm safe enough to be myself in front of them. And I've carried that through a little bit, but now, I'm not going to say that I'm 100% like, blah, but I'm much more comfortable in my skin now, just to perform and get up there. And it's just the stress behind kind of holding back who you are is just not worth it. It really isn't, because I was just like, and I'm you're holding yourself back and you're like, you can't be your full self. And yeah, I just decided I'm just not going to do that. Didn't happen overnight, but yeah.
Was that through the journey of becoming an instructor?
It's definitely helped, but there's definitely other areas of my life that have helped me be like, you know what, no. And it all comes back to just knowing who you are as a person, your values, your morals and your standards, and just not compromising that. And just being okay. That's another thing that I've learned being a manager too, is it's absolutely okay to be you, and not everybody's going to like you, and you have to say that out loud and just be like, be okay with that. Not everybody's going to like me. What do you mean? I want to be liked, you know, because as someone new coming into a new role, it's just like, I want to be liked, but my first role and my priority is to be a manager, and so just being okay with that is a hard thing, but over time you'll get used to it. Because, you know, and there's nothing against other people, but you know, you gel with certain people and you don't gel with certain people, and that's okay too, you know.
Yeah. And that's such a hard thing, especially as an instructor, because you're right, whenever you first come into it, you're like people pleasing, right? And then you stick to the process of what is successful as an instructor, and then once you've got that sussed, it's time to let it all go. But then sometimes you've gotten into the habit of pleasing the people, you know. I
think as well, especially with something like instructing, because to some degree, I guess your like success as an instructor, it would come down to things like getting feedback and things like that. So it's natural that you get hooked in that of like, well, what do people want then? And people pleasing and trying to keep everyone happy and trying to be liked by everyone. When at the end of the day, people are more likely to connect with you and gel with you if you are just being yourself. Yeah, like you said, it might not be everyone in the room, but you're probably going to get a bigger majority versus you trying to please everybody in the room and not being yourself.
Absolutely. And going back to like reading body language, and there's nothing against people that try and like, you know, find who they are by covering it up a little bit. That's totally fine, but people know when you're uncomfortable, and it shows in body language and facial expressions as well. It's just like, you know, you're all tense and stuff, and you're like, okay, this person like just needs to let go and just be comfortable with who they are. And yeah, you can definitely see that on stage, and if you're 100% comfortable on stage, it helps the people in front of you be comfortable. And that trust relationship is there, and then they'll just basically do whatever you want. No, they don't.
Here's my bank account.
Like you touched on before in regards to sort of showing that spectrum of emotions, and like you said, you're sort of happy to show that when you're teaching. I find as well on social media, for those that follow on Instagram, I'm sure they see your crazy posts sometimes and think, what is she on? But at the same time, like, you don't shy away from showing like if something's upset you, or if you're going through something and you're feeling quite challenged. And that's where I think, like, where do you kind of find that balance between showing that vulnerability but also sometimes maybe maintaining a bit of privacy if you feel you need it, like especially online and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have 2 Instagrams. So before I was a manager, I had a private Instagram, and I thought about it. I'm like, I don't want everybody in the world looking at my private Instagram, my private life, you know, me in bikini photos and stuff like that. That's just not me. I'm quite a private person, but I don't mind showing my vulnerability if it's going to help other people. I wasn't always like that, you know. There'll be times where I'd jump on IG and just, you know, have a rant about something that's annoyed me or something. But I think what's really helpful is that you totally can have a rant, but at the moment, with the level that I want my Instagram, is just like, you've got to have a solution to that. Sometimes you won't always have a solution to it, but if you can be like, look, this is how I'm feeling, you know, whatever it is, and I think the solution is this, this and this, and then you've actually got to go and action that. So if I don't have a problem being vulnerable on Instagram if I know that other people are going to relate to it. And some people will, some people won't, some people will flick through, and that's totally okay. And it takes time to get to that place of being like, oh, this is not for everybody. And I think I'm always questioning myself with like separating being vulnerable and being private, because there are, you know, people out there that'll use information, and you got to be careful about that. So that's how I manage it. Have I got a balance at the moment? Probably not, but it's always a work in progress. And I think just with the years that we've had, you know, over COVID and that, I feel like my Instagram's been a bit more spontaneous with just showing like laughter and joy, because people just need that at the moment, I think, it's definitely people, are just like, oh, it's not too bad if Sophie's on there laughing and being a bit of a dick, and just to show love rather than fear, what we've had over the last couple of years, and those two, love and fear, can't exist in the same place. So
definitely balance out all the sort of negativity that seems to always get. And I think they say that the algorithms will naturally, like a negative or a controversial post will always get boosted to the front because they know it's going to get more engagement versus, someone laughing and things like that. So it's, we need more of it, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
How does Sophie fill her cup? How do you rest and recover? How do you balance out, your hustle and everything else?
Yeah, absolutely. I have struggled, big struggles with it, because I'm such a giver. I love giving. I love making people happy, and then it's like, oh, now why do I feel so drained? I think the first and foremost is that I'm really lucky to have a faith background that's always brought me up in a Christian home, and the fact that I have had such fond memories with my grandparents. It would always be Sunday church in the morning and then lunch with my grandparents and spending, quality time with them. So I'm really lucky with that. I don't share that often because, of judgment and things like that, but I need to say it because it's a really important part of who I am. And then the next thing would be to get home to Palmy whenever I can to see my family. The Manawatu is where I'm from, and it's just grounding because it's familiar. We get to go and hug our German Shepherd dog and just see things that are familiar. So it's really helpful when you're going through a tough time. The next thing would be just to get out into nature, to the beach, to the sunshine. You'll always see me outside when it's a sunny day, just to ground yourself in nature. And just daily refilling my cup. I just make sure that I have the top three things, try and fill it up as much as possible, which is getting enough sleep. I need 8 to 9 hours sleep a night, good nutrition. If I, fail my nutrition, I feel like crap, which, then I'm not my best self and I can't give my best to other people. And exercise or movement that's best for your life stage and the stress levels that you're under, because it's really different. I definitely don't want to take on what I used to do in my 20s as to what I do now in my 30s. I think, as you go through your life stage, life changes, stress changes, and so you've got to adapt the way that you exercise and move to what you're going through in life, basically, too. So and just to have a bloody good laugh with people, honestly, if that means me jumping in a giant box and exploding out of it, being stupid, just anything to kind of cardboard box, anything to make people laugh and make myself laugh and just let go, and not be as serious.
I like what you said before, when life changes, so does all your other external stuff. For example, when we're all in lockdown, we were there for 8 weeks or whatever, and then we come back, and a lot of people, and including myself, try to go back to what you were doing pre the 8 weeks and stuff, right? And we lose that connection with our bodies, or we just try to go gung-ho, especially if you've got that type of personality. How did you manage that for yourself, and how do you teach that to your own members, to take it easy, to consider that life is different today as it was, I don't know, so many years ago? Because I also hear that as a personal trainer. I'll have this 35-year-old man who's I want to be as fit as I was when I was 20, and you're like, you have 3 kids now, you've got a career,
different life responsibilities.
Complete different. You cannot compare yourself to in your in your 20s. That's a recipe for disaster, right? How do you manage it for yourself, and when you're coaching your own members?
It's a tough one, because I think it's based on everybody's awareness of where they are. Lucky that I've got a background in science, and it's just science. If you've had time off, you're not going to be as strong or as fit as. So I've approached it from that perspective as well. And just to take it easy, just to do 10% every day rather than going 0 to 100. I'm 0 to 100 as well. That's probably why I get so tired so quickly. But that there's pros and cons to that as well. When I'm in the moment, I give my 100% to everything. So. Just to back it up with science and data, if you've had time off, and just be really open. I'll just tell people, hey guys, we've had 7 weeks off. You won't be as strong and fit as you were when you were coming into the gym quite frequently. Things have changed. Possibly and I don't try and suggest things because everybody's different. I'll just say possibly your stress levels will be higher, your circumstances at home may have changed, your whole routine may change, and just be real honest and open with them and just be like, right, like fitness might look different for you now, but just to do what you love and what feels good for your body in that time. And then just check in with people and check in with myself as well. I'm definitely an overcommitter. So I'll like lay out my Google Calendar with all the sort of different trainings and stuff that I've had to do. I've had to pull back from the amount of classes that I taught last year compared to now, because I want to fit in other types of training that help me feel good for my classes too. So yeah, you just have to reassess like every week on a Sunday afternoon. I'm just like, right, how do I feel this week? You know, can I take on those training blocks? Do I need to pull back? Have I got other things in my life? Because it's really important to understand that life is forever changing, you know, and to make sure that you've got all your cups filled from, you know, mental, social, spiritual, emotional and environmental well-being, and just make sure that that's, you know, filled up in as many areas as possible, but understand that life changes, and, you know, those sorts of cups will, you know, be emptied and filled up at different times of your life as well. So
yeah, you're so right. Life is dynamic, right?
Yeah,
life is dynamic,
totally
it's not rigid.
Yeah.
You mentioned before that you're doing training outside of your classes, so then you can perform better in classes.
Yeah.
What type of training do you do?
Because
I think, sorry to interrupt, I asked a question and interrupted, because I think this is so important for instructors to know as well.
Absolutely.
They're like, yeah, what type of training do you do?
Yeah, I have a PT here, Tom. He's awesome, and I weight train. I'm into my 8th blocks. I've been training over 12 months with him. The main reason why I wanted to train with him was to get stronger, to reduce risk of injuries, and just to feel stronger and more confident in my classes. But I really enjoy that type of training. You know, being right through from track and field to basketball, netball, all the different types of sports. Like I appreciate and I love that sort of training as well. So I'll try to do 3 sessions per week with that, but I also love to do, just go for a run. I find running is just the one type of exercise, just steady state is the one type of exercise that just really frees me mentally. And if I'm having, you know, if I wake up with anxiety, and I don't have any other training on in that day, because again, I can overtrain if I just, you know, get up and use exercise as a tool of like trying to, you know, switch off. Yeah, it's, if you just go for a steady state run, it's just like the best feeling in the world, you know. So yeah, it's definitely a balance.
Yeah, so what was that process for you of having to, you know, pull back, almost feel like you're taking, was it like feeling like you're taking 2 steps back to move 10 steps forward, kind of when you started to pull back with your classes and double down on strength training? Like, what was that process like, having to cut back on the things that you love?
Yeah.
For the betterness of Sophie.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really hard process. I knew in the back of my mind that this was going to benefit me long term, because I'm that 0 to 100 person. I'm like, no, I can handle everything.
I can do body attack every day.
Yeah, no. And I think, like, I'm more than physically capable, but it was more like a mental journey for me. And it's great because Tom just kept on coming through with the reason why I'm doing the training that I am. I didn't even get into squats until maybe 8 or 9 months into the training program, because my body was just not ready physically with my injuries and technique and stuff. So it was really hard mentally just to go through that own process in my mind of just being like, I'm not ready yet. Don't push it. It takes time to prepare your body to be able to, you know, do the things that you want to. So, but I'm very grateful that I'm at that moment now where I can be like, yep, no, I've done the work. Now let's go, you know, smash some weights in the gym.
Yeah. And I think that's so important as well for members and other people to see when an instructor sort of cuts back a little bit, because it makes them probably maybe think the same and reflect on what their schedule and routine is like. Like you said, people can get so rigid with like, oh, body pump every day or this every day, without checking in with what stress levels are at play and what has changed for them, and think, okay, maybe today actually I'm better off doing like a body balance. So I'm still moving, but it's going to be less intensity on my body than going to attack or sprint when, you know, there's other stresses going on.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely. Yeah. the type of training, you're completely right. Like I would absolutely love to go and do a sprint class because I like that type of training, but I did a couple and I'm like, man, why am I so drained? Because other areas of my life are causing me stress, which is totally fine. It's just you need to listen to how stressed your body is and definitely match that other stuff with the type of training that you're doing.
People forget that physical training is a stress on the body on top of like the lifestyle stresses from work and their relationships. It's those types of stresses that we don't tangibly see that we often overlook. Earlier before you mentioned how you can sometimes fall into overthinking, and I've been in there where I can get like paralyzed by too much analysis. When you find yourself in that space, what tools do you use? I know you mentioned the pros and cons, and I do that too. It's super helpful. Do you have any other tools that you use to get yourself out of there?
Yeah, sometimes I completely remove myself from the situation and just go and do something else. Doesn't work for me every time, but just to take myself out of that. Sometimes it happens in the weekend when I do have spare time and I'm like, oh, because I'm just so go during the week. In the weekend I'm just like, man, okay, like what do I do? Because I'm used to being so busy. So just removing myself from the situation and just putting myself in nature as one. Calling someone just to be like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Can I, blurt it out verbally to you? I'm a writer, so not like writing books, but like I need to write. I was in uni like that as well. I just learn, or like I just learn by writing, but also just before bed, so I don't have such a busy mind. I journal. I just journal everything down, then what I'm feeling, what I've got to do the next day, what's successful that I've done that day that I'm in, and things coming up, just because I'm worried about forgetting stuff. So I put it down on paper and then like write it's on paper unless someone burns it. Fine. Those are a couple of tools. What else do I do?
But that process of getting it out of your head, right? Yeah. What did Matthew McConaughey say? He said, I don't write things to remember, I write things to forget. So it frees up that mental clarity for him. So moving forward, what's on the horizon for Sophie Staniforth?
I am pretty excited. I am doing a course at the moment just to upskill myself in nutrition. So my university degree is, I did my postgrad in nutrition and then did my PT, and then I just really value on ongoing learning, just because, science changes, everything changes, so I want to keep myself up to date with that. And so that's something on the side that I do, just to upskill myself, to hopefully start my online nutrition business.
Exciting! It's out there. It's out there now.
Oh my goodness! I just said it.
We'll be checking back with you one day and being like, "How's that going?"
I love what you said. Science is always changing. You're always in this growth mindset, always trying to learn. What's something that you believed once upon a time that you don't necessarily believe now?
Father Christmas.
No, that's a cop-out answer, Sophie. For me, it used to be calorie counting. I thought everyone had to be calorie counting in order for them to, get lifestyle changes, but that's now not necessarily true. Because I stopped calorie counting and I still got changes, and so it works for some people and some people it doesn't. I remember being in my bodybuilding era, and that was something that I was really rigid with.
I'm a bit stumped on that one. I definitely have stuff in the back of my mind that I'm trying to remember. On that calorie counting thing, there's definitely stuff out there now that's the be all and end all, and it's definitely not. There's so many things, like I really want to get into learning more about hormones and gut health as well, because there's just so much that can be explored there too. So it's definitely not as black and white, and everybody is so individual, so it's just not one size fits all. There's not one meal plan that you can just send out there and say, here you go, you'll reach all your goals with that. So
and even then, when it comes to especially the type of people that we see every day with all the work and lifestyle stresses, giving them sometimes like a meal plan is just another added piece of stress.
Another thing they have to remember or focus on or whatnot, versus, like you said, it could just be more basic advice, like try and get more veggies on your plate, or like try and drink more water, versus and one thing at a time.
Absolutely. And just to cut back, like if people want a meal plan, be like, do you have the skills to be able to go out and shop for everything on that list? And do you know how to cook? Like, just strip it right back. This is what's helping me in the course, is just stripping right back to an achievable goal, because if not following a meal plan is too big for people, they're not going to follow it. And so I think like, you know, do you actually have the time? Do you feel like you have the time to go out and actually grocery shop for stuff? So yeah, it's really important to make things achievable for people too.
It's hard for people, because sometimes when they see, like, for a first consultation, they're so motivated and they're like, oh yeah, I want to come see a PT 4 times a week, coming from zero. I want a meal plan. They're just so gun-ho with it. And you're right, just being able to ask those types of questions to reflect everything back and see how does these new variables fit in your current lifestyle, you know, instead of making this complete flip of the switch.
And what are the potential barriers, I think? Like, if they've not thought through those barriers and they have just been like, yeah, I'm going to train every day, I'm going to like do this meal plan, but like you said, can you actually cook? Do you actually have the time to do that? Do you have the skills? Do you have access to those foods? And going through all that kind of thing to help people work that out, like if it actually is going to be achievable or not.
And if they can practically carry it out, it's just like, what is that going to look like in your everyday, and then they're like, oh, and it's like, it's okay, and this is what I'm here to help with. You know, what's that going to look like from when you get up? You know, do you have kids? Do you need to get them ready in the morning? Do you live by yourself? Like, what's your scenario? Can you actually carry out? And I'm talking to myself here because, you know, overcommitter, want to do everything. You know, different. My Google calendar is so many different colours, and I'm chopping and changing stuff. Oh my gosh! But can you actually and just be like, no, I can't do everything. I can't do everything. So just being okay with that too.
How do you trip yourself up now in being like not overcommitting yourself to things? I'm sure it's a work in progress, like all of us, you know. But what boundaries do you set to make sure that you don't overcommit?
Oh gosh. Reassessing every day, I think. And if someone asks something of me, if it's at work, yes, that's fine. Sometimes even at work, it's just been like, because you've got a list of priorities to do. Okay, so if I have got my work day set out and I prioritize everything, and then someone comes in and just be like, hey, Soph, can you do this? And I'll just be like, okay, you know what? You know, I reprioritize every day basically. So if it's really important, it needs to get done now, then everything just shifts down. And so in my own life, I look at my work week and I'm just like, okay, I would love to do all of those different things and learn that podcast and listen to that, but is that realistic? No, it's not. Okay, fine. So I'll just be like, I'll make another list, put it down there. You know, if my weeks and months start to free up, I'll be like, oh, can I go back to that list and add that in? But it's constantly just reassessing and just being really truthful with yourself, because I find it's more detrimental to me if I look at my calendar and I'm having to like delete stuff or take stuff out and be like, oh, you didn't do that, or you didn't do that today. So it's kind of just like, you've just got to be really kind to yourself, planning.
I think that process of compartmentalizing what do I need versus what do I want, because sometimes they're two complete different things, right?
I'm the same. I love lists, and I think that helps me, but I'm like you, and I can be like, have like 20 things on my list today, and I in my head I'm like, no, I'm gonna get all this done, and then, you know, like the day is almost over and I've done 10, and I'm like, that was a bit over ambitious of me to think I was gonna get all 20 things done today. But like you said, being a bit kinder and more realistic with like, what can I actually get done in a day, and not over committing to stuff.
And it's so easy to write a long list and then we forget like all the stuff that is almost automatic. Like we have to, I don't know, vacuum the house, and that takes fucking 2 hours, you know.
Have a shower, get ready, eat. You don't put those things in that actually take time.
Why do I have to shower?
Sophie Staniforth doesn't shower. You heard it here first.
I'm actually a really clean person. Sometimes I shower 3 times a day. On that eating thing too, like I've noticed that in other areas of my life, I've made myself almost too busy to care about food sometimes, and I think that's really important to bring up, because it's in like my background's in nutrition. I love food, but for me to get to a space where I'm too busy to not want to put the time and effort into like meal prep and stuff, it's just so important. So I think I've got really good awareness, and that's really important for all aspects of life. And like if you catch yourself out like not wanting to make dinner, it's just like, hang on a second, why am I not wanting to make dinner? I had to work late, or you know, I've just had such a busy day and I've actually got like limited energy. But you do have to push yourself to be like, no, eating good food is important, you know. I don't want to admit, but I've probably spent a lot of money on Uber Eats over the last 6 months. But it's just like, you know, if your life's out of balance like that, and you know that nutrition, you value nutrition, you have to be like, right, I have to put you know, more effort into that. So what else do I have to take out or remove to be able to, you know, give back to that, you know, value in my life? Yeah,
that's why it's good to be mindful of what those values are. So like you said, you can use that almost as like an awareness trigger of like, oh, hey, this is something I usually value and I'm not doing it lately. Why is that? What's, you know, getting in the way of me doing something that I do usually value quite a lot? Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you weren't in the health and fitness industry, what do you think you'd be doing?
Do you know what? I've asked myself this before. I would love to sing. I would still love to kind of perform. Like if I had a half decent voice, I would just, I don't know. I value sitting there and listening to The Voice or, you know, X Factor or something like that. And I think there was me and my partner, he came down and visited me on the weekend, and I was just in tears with this person. I can't remember her last name. Her first name's Bella, and I think she was on The Voice. And the way that she performed was just, it was a perfect combination of taking the song, taking the emotion, the runs that she did, and the performance, the facial expression, the body language. It was just all packaged together. I'm getting goosebumps, trying not to cry. Like, it's just the way that people can take, and she had a quite heavy backstory as well, and the way that she kind of took that backstory and the pain and everything that she went through and put it into this performance. It's just, you know, and there's something so beautiful about someone going through hardship and just doing what they love and what they've been gifted with so they can help other people. And so I didn't get the voice, that's no worries, so that's why I'm on stage teaching people how to fall in love with fitness. So yeah.
We love to leave our listeners with a practical tip before we wrap up the session. What's something that our listeners can action to better their health, personal development and growth? Comes straight from Sophie Staniforth. It can be about nutrition, it can be about instructing, it can be whatever, anything you want.
I think just get in contact with someone that knows and that's really qualified in the health and fitness industry to help you. And that's definitely not reaching out on Instagram. There's so much information out there. Go to someone that's actually got the qualifications that you gel with. Because not everybody gels with every personal trainer, nutritionist or life coach that can actually sit down with you, that really cares and be like, right, where do you want to go to from here? Like, what's your goals? What have you tried in the past? You know, what has worked, what hasn't worked? And just make a friendship with somebody.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Sophie Staniforth.